The Sumerian creation story does not end with the Earth being made. It ends with a warning. The tablets describe a massive planet on a long elliptical orbit. It came in from the outer solar system, collided with another planet, and that collision formed the Earth, the asteroid belt, and the Moon. All of it from one impact. Then the planet continued on its orbit, out past everything, into the dark. But here is the thing the textbooks leave out. The tablets say it comes back. Every time it does, the outer planets are pulled off their predicted paths. The Sumerians had a specific word for this. They called it wandering. They were explicit. When the outer planets start to wander, that is the trigger, and that is when the cycle enters its next phase. In 2016, two astronomers at Caltech published a paper showing that the outer planets are wandering, not metaphorically, not approximately. The orbital paths of objects beyond Neptune are being pulled in a direction they should not be. Something large is out there, something on a long elliptical orbit. It is something the Sumerians described 5,000 years ago, and the astronomers confirmed with a calculation that has a 0.007% chance of being wrong. I have spent a long time with these tablets. The further you read, the harder it gets to call this mythology. The Enuma Elish is the oldest written cosmology we have. 7 clay tablets, about 1,000 lines of cuneiform, recovered from a royal library at Nineveh in the 19th century, and sitting in the British Museum ever since. Every history class that mentions it calls it a creation myth, ancient people explaining the world before science could do it for them. The problem with that is the level of detail. Myths do not describe gravitational influence. They do not name specific planets and their positions. They do not describe a collision where one body splits in two, one half forming the Earth, and the other becoming the debris field between Mars and Jupiter. That is not a myth, that is an impact event. The tablets describe a planet called Nibiru. It enters the solar system from outside on an elliptical orbit. As it moves inward, 2 larger planets bend its path, Saturn and Jupiter, named by their Sumerian equivalents. Then Nibiru collides with Tiamat, a planet that once existed between Mars and Jupiter. Tiamat splits. Half is pushed into a new orbit and becomes the Earth. Half shatters and becomes what the tablets call the Great Band. We call it the asteroid belt. Tiamat's largest satellite gets caught in the dynamics of the collision and ends up orbiting the new Earth. We call it the Moon. NASA and mainstream planetary science have a model for how Earth and the Moon formed. It is called the Giant Impact Hypothesis. A Mars-sized body struck proto-Earth, the debris coalesced into the Moon, and the asteroid belt formed from a destroyed body. This model was proposed in the 1970s. The Sumerians wrote their version at least 3,000 years earlier. And the asteroid belt fits the description in a way that is hard to ignore. Scientists have studied its composition for decades. The inner and outer regions have different chemical signatures, consistent with debris from 2 separate bodies mixing together, not material that simply never coalesced into a planet. The largest fragments, Ceres and Vesta, show evidence of differentiated interiors, layered geology that only forms inside a body large enough to generate its own internal heat. These are pieces of something that was once a planet. The tablet said Tiamat was destroyed. The belt's composition says the same thing in geological language. That's not what most people focus on when they read these tablets, because the creation event, as extraordinary as it is not the part the Sumerians seemed most concerned about preserving. What concerned them was what comes after. Nibiru does not disappear after the collision. The tablets are clear about this. The planet continues on its orbit outward into the deep solar system and back. The Sumerian name for it, the crossing point, is not a historical label. It is a description of ongoing behavior. The planet that marks the crossing every time it crosses. Tablet 5 of the Enuma Elish describes what happens during Nibiru's return. Most of this tablet is destroyed. The section covering what occurs during the active crossing is in the fragment that has not been recovered. I will come back to that. But what does survive is specific enough to work with. During Nibiru's crossing, the outer planets wander from their stations. That's the language. Wander from their stations. In Sumerian astronomical texts, this is technical vocabulary. A planet wandering means it is deviating from its predicted position, moving off course, being pulled by something. The Mul.Apin, a Babylonian star catalog built on even older Sumerian observations, records that when Nibiru appears in a particular position in the night sky, it marks what the text calls a period of great disturbance in the heavens and on the earth. The outer planets wander, seismic activity increases, the tides behave unusually. Something worth knowing about the Mul.Apin is that it documents continuous sky observations spanning at least 500 years before it was compiled. The Sumerians were not casual stargazers. They were systematic. They tracked the same stars over generations, recorded deviations, and built predictive tables. If Nibiru's orbital period is approximately 3,600 years, and the Sumerians had been rigorously recording the sky for centuries before the Enuma Elish was written, there is a realistic possibility they witnessed one approach. Not the catastrophic collision that formed the Earth, that was billions of years ago, but the wandering, the gravitational pulling, the disturbance that precedes a crossing. If they saw it happen once, they would have written it down. And they did. Not the end of the world. That's not what the tablets describe for these periodic crossings. The catastrophic event, the one that formed the Earth, was a specific pass. Nibiru, at maximum energy, hit a specific target that no longer exists. That configuration does not repeat. What repeats is disturbance. And the sign that it is beginning is the wandering. So when do the outer planets start to wander? Konstantin Batygin and Michael Brown are planetary scientists at Caltech. In 2016, they published a paper that quietly unsettled a lot of people in the field. They had been studying extreme trans-Neptunian objects, bodies in the outer solar system, with orbital periods of thousands of years. The orbits of these objects should be randomly distributed. No particular direction, no clustering, just scattered across the sky the way you would expect if nothing unusual was influencing them. They were clustered. 6 of the objects had their orbits aligned in the same direction, all being pulled the same way. The probability that this happens by chance is 0.007%. The only explanation that fits is a large, undetected planet on a highly elliptical orbit, approximately 10 times Earth's mass, somewhere in the outer solar system. Its gravity is pulling these objects off their natural paths, causing their orbits to deviate from where they should be. Wandering from their stations. Batygin and Brown named this hypothetical planet Planet 9. They calculated its mass, its approximate orbital distance, and the region of sky where it should be. In 2024, they published again with updated data, 13 objects now instead of 6. The effect was still there, still pointing to the same cause. In early 2025, astronomers reported another Sedna-like object whose orbit filled a gap in the previous data, pushing Planet 9's likely position to a more remote part of the solar system. More objects, same signal. The evidence keeps accumulating. Right now, the Vera Rubin Observatory in Chile is running the most comprehensive sky survey ever attempted. It started in 2024. If Planet 9 is on the orbital path the papers calculate, this telescope should find it. The results are still coming in. The planet has not been officially confirmed. But the wandering has been. What Batygin and Brown measured in 2016 is exactly what the Mulapine star catalog describes as the opening condition, the outer bodies pulling away from their predicted paths, the sign that Nibiru is approaching its crossing position. The tablets do not say Earth gets destroyed on Nibiru's next pass. That is not what they describe. What destroyed the previous planet, Tiamat, was one specific event, a direct high-energy collision. The inner solar system was configured differently then. Tiamat was there. It is not anymore. The conditions that produced that collision do not exist to be repeated. What the tablets describe for subsequent crossings is exactly what Batygin and Brown measured: gravitational disturbance of the outer solar system. The inner solar system feels it too, in smaller ways. Increased seismic activity, unusual tidal behavior, atmospheric disruption. Significant, but not extinction level. So why does this matter? Because if the Sumerians correctly described Planet 9's existence 5,000 years before we detected its gravitational fingerprint, and the match between the orbital mechanics in the tablets and the 2016 paper is specific enough that it is genuinely hard to dismiss, then you have to ask how they knew. They did not have telescopes. They did not have computers. They could not detect objects in the outer solar system through any method we understand. There is an explanation that does not require anything supernatural. If Nibiru's orbital period is roughly 3,600 years, and the Sumerians had been recording the sky systematically for at least 2,000 years before the Enuma Elish was compiled, they could have observed one approach, watched the outer planets deviate, recorded the disturbances that followed, and written it into their most important cosmological document as a warning for every civilization that came after them. That is not prophecy. That is documentation. But then the question becomes, what did they see follow the wandering? What actually happened the last time the outer planets pulled off course? The tablets describe the trigger, the disturbances, the sequence leading up to whatever comes at the end. There are other texts that give fragments of the answer. The Atrahasis epic describes a period of catastrophic flooding that the Sumerians tied to a cosmic event, not a local storm, but something that affected the entire world simultaneously. The Epic of Gilgamesh describes the same flood from a different angle. Geologists have confirmed a major flood event in the Black Sea region around 5,600 BCE, and a separate global disruption around 3,200 BCE, both within the range of an orbital period of 3,600 years, counting backwards from today. The Sumerians connected these events to the return of Nibiru. Whether that connection is accurate is a separate question. But they were clearly describing real catastrophes with real geological records behind them. And then they wrote the whole framework into the Enuma Elish, the orbital cycle, the trigger, the disturbances, as if they understood that the civilization currently reading it would need to know what to watch for. That part is in the missing section of Tablet 5. Tablet 5 of the Enuma Elish is the most damaged of all 7. The section that describes what specifically happens during Nibiru's active crossing, the full sequence from the wandering through to whatever comes after, is in the portion that has not been recovered. We have the beginning of the description. We have the end. The middle is gone. 90% of Sumerian tablets remain untranslated. The Vera Rubin Observatory is scanning the sky right now. And somewhere in the outer solar system, moving through the dark at a distance we have not measured, something is there. 13. Separate objects in the outer solar system are being pulled by it. The Sumerians tracked it, named it, described what it does when it gets close, and preserved that description on clay tablets that survive 5,000 years to end up in museums. The crossing they described is not an apocalypse. The tablets do not say that, but they also do not say that nothing happens. And the specific section where they describe what that means, what the full sequence actually looks like when the wandering begins and the crossing approaches, is still missing. We are still looking.